Alrighty, well, happy 4th of July weekend. I know that there's going to be some people in second service that are tired, so I'm just going to assume that you're the people that didn't go to fireworks or can't sleep, have insomnia or something, I don't know. So thanks for being here. A couple things I just wanted to make you aware of as we get going here. First one is this. We have a saying that we've always said. We say we want to be a church in our community that if we cease to exist, people would notice. And what we mean by that is that we want to serve people. We want to meet needs in our community. We want to love people. And one of the ways that we get to do that every year is an event called the Hilliard Back to School Fair. And so I wanted to make you aware of this. There's a slide that's going to be up here. Each year in August, we get to host an event here at the Y, and families that just maybe aren't able to afford school supplies, we're able to purchase those for them and love them in a very practical, tangible way. And maybe you didn't know this or not, but as a church, we buy those school supplies. And so if you scan this QR code here, you'll be taken to an Amazon list that you'll be able to decide if you want to buy 20 pencils or 20,000 pencils, whatever you want to buy that's on that list for families as they get going back to school in the fall. You'll be able to purchase those and help us love people in our community. And so if you want to get your phone out, you want to do that now, feel free to do that. That is one of the obvious ways, one of the easy ways that we get to love people right where you are with your beautiful Amazon Prime account, right where you sit from the ease of your own phone with your own credit card. But we're excited about that and honored that we get to do that. And so we hope as you hear about that in the next couple of weeks that you'll help us come around that event and just purchase things for families in need and love them in that way. Second announcement thing I want to make sure that we know, next Sunday we are having what we're calling a prayer and progress party. So most of you know that we're building our first permanent home, our first building out on Walker Road across from Bradley High School and Memorial Middle School. Many of you have been faithfully giving to that and you're like, hey, where's that building at? What's going on? Are they doing anything? Are they building anything? And so we thought it would be cool to just after church next week go out there and give some tours, let people walk through that, see the progress, make sure that we just get to celebrate that. We're going to take some Sharpies and just write some Bible verses, write some prayers on some of the walls in certain places. Don't just go out there this week with a Sharpie, okay? But we're going to have a party out there and we're just going to celebrate and see what God is doing and pray for some of our friends, people that maybe we've been praying for years, people that we hope will come to know Jesus in that building. And so we want to celebrate them and celebrate that. And so you'll hear more about that, but that's next Sunday, 1 p.m. after second service. You can grab some Chipotle and come on out there. It'll kind of just be an informal time. We'll give some tours and have a time of prayer and you can see what God's doing. All right. So you got an email about that already probably, and you'll see that on our social media. Third thing I want to announce is this. Many of you know that we have a heart for church planting. Many of you know that we recently announced that our newest church planting residents were going to be moving here. It's probably really dark in here and you can't see, but Josh and Sarah Taylor are here today. And so we want to celebrate that. I'm hoping that after church today, someone will buy them lunch. We put a picture of them up there because there are some people in this church that will just say, hey, I'm Josh Taylor, buy me lunch, and they'll be lying, all right? So we wanted you to know what his face actually looked like, all right? But that is them. They moved their family here, moved their home to Central Ohio yesterday, and so they're probably, if you think you're tired, they're probably even more tired than you are. But we're excited for them to be with us for the next year in a church planting residency, and you'll see them on stage. We'll highlight them more. You'll get to know them. But if you get a chance today, just meet them and shake their hand, say hi to them. And we're excited about what God's going to do as they prepare to plant a church in the next year. So, all right, moving on finally here. It's a new week. This is another week where we're going to continue this series that we've been in this summer. Summer of Wisdom. We've been kind of walking through the book of Proverbs, some high points. I think most of you know that Proverbs is the book of wisdom, and we've defined wisdom as this, the use and application of knowledge. Proverbs has wisdom for everyday life. Proverbs has wisdom for our marriages, for what to do with our finances, for business, for relationships, a lot of different things. And we've been in this book this summer because we want to build our lives and establish our hearts in God's wisdom and make sure that we're walking in truth. And so I thought I would just read some of the big ideas from the last couple weeks because these are some great one-liners that I think tell us the heart of this book. First week of this series, we said that reverence for God is the foundation of wisdom. Second week, we said the Lord gives wisdom to those who chase it. Week 3, we said wisdom leads to life, but foolishness leads to suffering. A couple weeks ago, Blake spoke and he said to do life with the wise. And last week we were talking about money, talking about our finances, and we said you can't measure what you can't manage. And so we need to budget, we need to tithe, we need to save our money and let God make us generous people. And so this week we want to continue. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 14. I'd invite you to turn there if you've got a Bible. If you don't, there's one under your chair, one there on the floor. If someone next to you has a Bible, just take it out of their hand and say, God told me to do that, or something like that, all right? So, but there's a Bible around you somewhere. We're going to be in Proverbs 14 on page 383. And eventually we'll settle into some verses here, but there's so much truth. I want to just read through some of these first here. We're gonna eventually get to verse 26, but let me just highlight some of these great one-liners. This is Proverbs chapter 14, verse 1. It says this: "A wise woman builds her home, but a foolish woman tears it down with her own hands." Kind of highlighting the fact that we need to be conscious of the ways that we act, the ways that we operate, the impact that our everyday actions have into building those around us up and building our home and building our household. Verse 3 says this: "A fool's proud talk becomes a rod that beats him, but the words of the wise keep them safe." Now, I'm not going to ask if you're wise or not, but maybe you've said something before and then someone brought it up later and said, "But wait, you said this, or you said this about this person." Sometimes our words can be used against us. Sometimes our words can come back to bite us. Verse 4 says this: "Without oxen, a stable stays clean, but you need a strong ox for a large harvest." Life can be messy. Ministry can be messy. Family can be messy. Farming, whether we know it or not here in suburbia, can be messy, but sometimes it's necessary for the harvest to take place, for God to do what he wants to do. Verse 7 says this: "Stay away from fools, for you won't find knowledge on their lips." I tell my daughters that all the time. I say, stay away from every boy. They're all fools. And they're like, "Dad, you're overreacting a little bit." And I'm like, well, we'll see about that, right? But if you hang around with fools, they're not people that are just spouting off wisdom, right? They're not people that are giving us knowledge. And so when we spend time with them, we find that they're making empty promises. They're enticing us to empty things. Verse 11 says this: "The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the godly will flourish." Some of us think the goal in life is to have a big, beautiful house, right? And yet this tells us that sometimes you can get a big, beautiful house and not be pursuing God. Sometimes you may be the person who lives in a tent and doesn't have all of the things, all of the bells and whistles, but you may have your eyes on Jesus. Maybe just a good reminder that you can't take your stuff with you, right? Maybe a good reminder that possessions don't equal success or stability in the eyes of God and in the kingdom of God. Verse 13 says this: "Laughter can conceal a heavy heart, but when the laughter ends, the grief remains." We try to cover up a lot of things, right? We try to act like we're happy. We try to fill our lives with stuff, with laughter. And yet sometimes you can't cover up pain with fun. Sometimes we have to address what's actually going on in our life, in our heart. All kinds of different one-liners here. Here's the final one I'll point out before we get to our main passage. Verse 23 says this: "Work brings profit, but mere talk leads to poverty." Some of us don't like the word work. We certainly don't like the phrase hard work. That's not an interest to us, right? But we have to remember that God invented work. God created work as worship, as our response to his goodness. And we rest from work. Yes, we Sabbath from work, but we are also blessed by our work in the name of God. And so these verses are reminding us, work brings profit, but mere talk leads to poverty. Talk gets you nowhere, but over time, hard work, build upon hard work will add up and will count and will manifest something in your life. Now, those are just the appetizers. There was just too many good one-liners in this passage this week. I just wanted to highlight some of those because I've been loving the book of Proverbs, and I hope you're taking our challenge to read through a proverb a day, whatever the date is on the calendar, to read through that proverb. Got a chance to do that on vacation a little bit. Those are just the appetizers. Here's the main course. We're going to start in verse 26. Let me read this to us. This is God's wisdom for us. It says, verse 26, Proverbs 14, "Those who fear the Lord are secure. He will be a refuge for their children." Those who fear the Lord are secure. He will be a refuge for their children. We've talked about this. I mentioned that we even talked about fear of the Lord and fearing the Lord week 1. And there's different versions of the Bible, different translations of the Bible. Sometimes I think we hear the word fear and I wonder what we're thinking. We're thinking that like God is chasing us or something and he's the boogie monster. I think sometimes the way that fear should be translated, or it could be better translated in other passages, is this word reverence. And we've talked about reverence. Reverence is honor and respect that is deeply felt and outwardly demonstrated. And so those who understand who God is, and in light of that, understand who they are, those who have a deep felt reverence and outwardly demonstrated reverence for God are secure. This passage tells us that, this verse tells us that they are secure because they know who God is and they know who they are. They know who they are in relation to him, and they can live their life as a response to his goodness, to his greatness, and they can live their lives with reverence and response. Those who reverently fear God understand what life is about. Sometimes we're tempted to think that life is about us. Sometimes we're tempted to think that life is about what we want. But when we point those around us, our family, our kids, as this verse says, when we point our kids to ourselves, when we say, hey, I'm your provider, hey, I'm good enough, hey, find your strength in me, eventually those around us, our family, our kids, are going to be let down. And so this verse is saying, when you fear the Lord, when you have reverence for God, when you point your family to the God of the universe, when you point your kids to the God of the universe, they're going to have peace, they're going to have security. And so one of the things that we can do is point the people around us to true security. Point your family to true security. Verse 27 says this, fear of the Lord is a life-giving fountain. It offers escape from the snares of death. Now, this is an Old Testament passage, but this is basically the good news of Jesus right there in one verse. When we understand who God is, when we understand who we are, when we understand that our lives are filled with sin, that we're walking toward death, that nothing we can do can make us better, nothing can make us holy, when we understand that we are walking in our sin, we're defined by our sin, and we're in need of a Savior, at the end of ourselves, we can cry out to God. And this verse is promising this, that when we fear the Lord, when we have reverence for God, when we understand who we are and we understand that we need him and we can live our lives in response to him, that is a life-giving fountain. And that is how we avoid the snares of death. Here's a way that I think we could say it. Trying to feel good enough or act good enough or be good enough, those things are going to run out. Religion runs out, but reverence or fear of the Lord doesn't run out. Reverence doesn't run out because reverence is where our minds need to be, understanding who we are and who God is. Verse 28 says this, a growing population is a king's glory. A prince without subjects has nothing. I'm not trying to get political here, so we'll talk about kings, right? That's what this is talking about. Don't project this on America. You might think I'm trying to say something here. I promise I'm not. But there are leaders who believe that wealth and military victories are the thing that defines them. There are leaders that think that's what makes them great. There are leaders that think that is what true success is. And yet, if you're serving people, if you're investing in people, if you're building up people, and you're worried about the nation and the country and the people around you, you would understand that the well-being and growth of the people inside of that nation is really what matters. Some parents think that the best thing they can do for their kids is give them a really impressive house, or give them toys, or put them on a really good club soccer team, or get them into a good college, or get them scholarships that impress people, or make sure that they just have the stuff that I didn't have when I was little and I was growing up. And I think what we're seeing here is the people that we get to invest in, the people that we get to oversee, the people that we get to lead, all that matters is that those people are growing, that their eyes are on Jesus, and that they have what really matters, what really counts. And what really counts is not military victories or money or possessions or things. We need to value what matters. We need to invest in people. All that matters is people and their hearts and their eternity. And so we need to value what matters with the people that we get to influence and lead. A few more verses here. Verse 29 says this: people with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. I just went on my family vacation and rode in a minivan with my family for 2 weeks. I read this verse on vacation. It was very, very convicting. People with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. Wise people can control their emotions and express them appropriately. Wise people know when to say nothing. They know when to say a little bit of something, and they know what to say and when to say it and how to say it, and they know how to keep their emotions in check. All right, here's a verse that I want us to focus on today. Verse 30 says this: a peaceful heart leads to a healthy body. Jealousy is like cancer in the bones. A peaceful heart has resolved its inner tensions. A peaceful heart has freedom and knows freedom from intense, stressful emotions. A peaceful heart is beneficial to your physical health. Our heart, our mind, our body, our emotions, they're all interconnected in ways that sometimes we want to admit and other times we don't want to admit. And so sometimes we think like, oh, I've just been going a little too much here. I need to get a nap, when the reality is we're stressed out about something, or we're not trusting God about something, or we're feeling anxiety about something. Sometimes we break down because we've been working out and we think like, oh, I shouldn't have done that activity, and it had nothing to do with that activity. It has to do with where our heart is, where our mind is, where our emotions is. And this proverb is pointing us to that. So you might be sitting here today thinking like, all right, well, that doesn't really apply to me because I'm someone that has a peaceful heart. I know peace. My body's not falling apart. I haven't thrown my back out recently. I haven't pulled any muscles. I haven't needed surgery. And so I think I'm doing good. And you might be sitting here thinking like, all right, this verse is talking about someone that maybe is a little anxious, but it's not me. That's what I like to think when I read some of these passages too. And I take a chance just to study them. And I say, all right, God, what do you want to teach me? And as I ask this, God, am I nervous about anything? Am I anxious about anything? Am I worried about anything? Am I stressed about anything? Does this verse apply to me? How does this verse apply to me? And I read, a peaceful heart leads to a healthy body, but jealousy is like cancer in the bones. And I think like, well, I'm not jealous, right? That's what happens like at Christmas when you're 10 and your brother gets something that you want and you're like, oh, I'm gonna take that when he's sleeping tonight, right? That's jealousy, but I'm way past that. I'm a couple decades past that. I haven't stolen anything from my brother in at least a month, right? And so that doesn't apply to me, and yet there's other translations that interpret jealousy as another word. They interpret it as the word envy. See, it says jealousy is cancer to the bones. I read another translation this week that said envy rots the bones. So I had to ask, am I envious of something? What is envy? Well, envy is discontentment. Envy is discontentment, and envy is a painful or resentful awareness to want someone's quality, skill, achievement, or possession. That's when it got a little more real for me, right? I'm not jealous, I'm not envious. And then I read the definition of envy and I'm like, oh, maybe I do struggle with envy a little bit, right? Because where this happens is when we start looking at our day-to-day life and we think like, you know what, I'm not happy. I'm discontent with my life. I'm discontent with my things. I don't like who I am or where I am. We see people that we've worked with for years getting promotions or taking other jobs and making more money, and we think like, well, that's not fair. I want what they have. We see people around us in our neighborhood making upgrades to their houses and putting in the patio that we want. And we're like, why did they get that patio? My friend this week built a garage that was my dream garage with an apartment above it. And he's like, my parents can come and visit and they won't have to be in my house. And I'm like, I want my parents out of my house. That's all I've ever wanted, right? We look at people and things and achievements and skills and we want what they have. We're envious of what they have and we're envious of their money and all the things that they have. And here's what this verse is getting at. Envy sucks the joy out of your life. Being jealous, being envious of what someone has, what they possess, where they're going, what they're doing, that sucks the joy out of your life. Maybe you've heard this phrase that comparison is the thief of joy. When you compare what you have or what you don't have to what someone else has, sometimes it robs your joy because you think like, I don't like what I have, or I need that thing. And it goes for cars, it goes for boats, it goes for those of us that wish we could have a perfect family or a bigger family or a smaller family, or we could eliminate our family, right? Some of us just want what other people have. And we spend our days comparing ourselves and comparing our lives to their lives. I've done this my entire life. I wanted to be smarter. I wanted to be taller. I wanted to be more athletic. I wanted to be more spiritual. I wanted to get certain scholarships. I wanted to get into a certain school. I wanted to get a certain job that someone else got. I wanted my church to grow at the rate that someone else's church was growing at. I wanted my family to look like someone else's family. And we're jealous and we're envious of what others have. And it robs us of joy. It sucks the joy out of our lives because we're comparing our life to someone else's life. I read a study this week. It said the number of teens who don't enjoy life has doubled thanks to social media. It said this, the rise of social media has led to a significant increase in depression and feelings of hopelessness among teenagers, according to a poll conducted by the University of Michigan. Nearly half of teens now agree with statements such as, I can't do anything right and I do not enjoy life, double the number from a decade ago. Psychologist Dr. Jean Twenge attributes this rise to social media and screen time, which has become the primary cause of teen depression. Teens spend up to 9 hours a day on screens, replacing important social interactions and developmental milestones. The trend is particularly announced among girls who face increased pressure to compare themselves and gain social status online. The pandemic has only exacerbated these mental health issues, with Gen Z also grappling with political polarization, social unrest, leading to a pessimistic outlook on the future. I don't have to tell you that social media makes us want what others have. I love the way this study is written where it's like, hey, let's attack young people and let's maybe mention Gen Z at the end too, right? They're the only ones that have social media, so it's their problem. And yet I look at my life and I think we can look at these things and think, man, it's not great. That's how I function. I went on vacation last week. I haven't been at church the last couple of weeks. Thank you for not judging me too much. We got away. I wanted to show you some pictures from our vacation. Here's the first one. This is one we took in Virginia Beach, one of our first days at the beach. Here's another picture we took that was overlooking New York. But here's the problem. You can't look at someone's pictures that they post or their vacation and judge your life based on their highlight reel, right? Because here's some other pictures that we took. Here's a gem when we were trying to get ready for a picture. I'm pretty sure everyone in my family might not even be in that one, or maybe they're just not looking at the camera, right? There's the non-highlight reel I didn't post, and yet we judge our life based on their life. And so I'm putting up my good pictures this week, but I was also looking at some of my friends. Actually, I had 2 different friends who the same time we were gone took their families to Hawaii. And I was like, oh man, I had to go to Acadia National Park. I wish I could afford to take my family to Hawaii, right? We only went on a 2-week vacation and they went on a 3-week vacation. My life's miserable. And I'm looking at their highlight reel and thinking that their flight was perfect and they had no missed connections and no one in their family argued and nothing went wrong on their vacation. And I find myself jealous and envious of what they have. Here's another gem from our vacation. I asked a woman I didn't know to take a picture, and I think something's off there a little bit, right? I don't know which way we're going here, but I got that one back and I'm like, I cannot edit that. Thank you for nothing. I'm just like, I tried to crop it and I was like, a crop's not making it straight. So these are the pictures you don't post, right? Here's another one. I don't even know where Kristen is. We're trying to, I don't know. She finally realized she wanted to leave me, right? And so she took off in that picture. But right, we look at our life and we say, God, I don't like what I have in my life. And we judge our life based on other people's lives, and other people's lives aren't perfect. And so you can't judge your life based on someone else's highlight reel. I promise you that. Here's the funny thing. I was planning to talk about this week. I had posted some vacation photos, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna show my non-highlight reel. I'm gonna show the things that didn't go great. I'm gonna show some of the things that weren't perfect. And then this happened. We got back from vacation, and while we were on vacation, the trusty minivan started making a little noise, but I found if I just rev the engine, it would go away. And so everybody's like, whoa, what's that noise, Dad? And I'm like, I don't know, it's probably nothing. It's probably like, some like fan or some piece of plastic is just loose. I think it's just making it rattle. I'm trying to look up in there and in a hotel parking lot, and I can't find anything. And I'm like, we'll take it in, they'll fix something. It might be a couple $100, whatever. And they called me back the other day, and they're like, hey, your timing belt's slipped, and we're gonna have to replace the water pump and everything in there, and it's gonna be close to $5,000. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I brought in the maroon minivan. You must be talking about someone else's car. I think it'd be like $100. And they're like, no, it's gonna be like $5,000. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I let it affect my mood. Then I let it change my mood. And then I started thinking about what other people have, or thinking about what I want, or thinking about other people's lives. And the first thing I thought was, man, I wish I had enough money to pay for that. This is not me asking for money, because you wanna know a little secret? I do have enough money to pay for that. God has blessed my family. God has blessed us, and we've been able to save money to pay for car repairs, to pay our mortgage, to buy groceries, to go on vacations. But my first thought was, God, I wish I had enough money to pay for that. And God had to remind me, you do have enough money to pay for that. Here's Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6 says this, and I think this speaks to our jealousy, the fact that we struggle with envy. It says, don't love money. Be satisfied with what you have. For God has said, I will never fail you. I will never abandon you. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? When we look at our lives and we look at our circumstances and we look at what's happening to us, and we're jealous of others and we're envious of others and we're not happy and not content in our circumstances, we don't think of it this way. But what we're saying is, God, you're not providing enough. Or God, you're not my provider. God, you've abandoned me. God, you're not taking care of me. I'm not happy with the life that you've given me. And that's what I did this week with a little minivan repair. And ironically, I'd already written most of this message, and so I was able to stop and say, all right, what's God been teaching me all week? What's the advice that I'm gonna try and give other people to sound really spiritual? And it was this, that contentment is the foundation of peace. We need to be content with who we are and where we are, because ultimately that's pointing to our contentment with God and who he is for us. Now, yes, you can have some drive, you can want to better yourself and improve some things, but you need to be content with who you are and where God has you, because that's where peace comes from. Envy sucks the joy out of your life, and comparison is the thief of joy. But contentment is the foundation of peace. So how can we be content? How can we be happy? How can we be okay with our circumstances and the things that are going on, and not looking at other people's lives, but focusing on our life and the good things that God has done? Philippians 4:4-9 says this, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considered in all you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he's done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God of peace will be with you. How can we be content? How can we not struggle to be jealous of other people's lives? Well, when you're up against something that's not good, when you find yourself being jealous or envious, just do this. Do what these verses say. Tell God what you need. Thank him for all he's done, and then you will experience peace. It may not be right in the beginning. I'll be honest. I was telling God what I needed this week. I literally came to this message. I opened this Word doc and I'm like, all right, need some minivan repairs. Let me do this. God, I need more money. And as I said that, God was like, hey, Mark, you've got enough money. You're fine. So God needed to remind me that he is my provider. He sustains me. He carries me. He's been good to me and good to my family, and I'm just fine, and I can be content in where he has me. So I did that second thing. God, let me thank you for what you've done. Thank you for the finances you've given my family. Thank you for the minivan you've given my family. Thank you for the vacation we just went on. Thank you for the pictures that we were able to take. Thank you for the home that we have. Thank you for the family you've given me. Thank you for who you've been to me. Thank you for sending your son, and thank you for my life and where my life is. And this verse says, then you will experience peace. Because when we bring our requests to God, knowing that he's enough, and we make them his problem and not our problem, sometimes we're reminded that those requests aren't valid. Sometimes we're reminded that he's gonna worry about that and we can trust him. Regardless, we're pointed to all the ways he's blessed us and all the good things we have, and we have peace because we have reverence for him, because we're worshiping him. How can we be content? Tell God what you need. Thank him for all he's done, and then you'll experience peace. And if that doesn't work, maybe even if that does work, get social media off your phone this week. Maybe delete it for a week, for a month. Maybe it's making you jealous. Maybe it's making you envious. Maybe it's making you look at someone else's highlight reel and belittle the blessings that God has put in your life. Envy or jealousy sucks the joy out of your life. So focus on what's good. Focus on who God is. Focus on what he's done in your life. Focus on his character, and focus on things that are pure, things that are noble, things that are worth looking at. And you'll find that you have contentment and you have peace. Let me pray. God, thank you for the ways that you love us. Thank you for the ways that you bless us. Thank you for the ways that you have given yourself to us. Thank you for sending your son, Jesus. Thank you that he gave his life on the cross. And when we were far from you, his death and burial and resurrection paved the way back for us and gave us eternal life. Lord, I pray that we can focus on things that matter. We can be reminded on things that matter this week, and we can be content in who you are and where you have us, Lord. You are perfect and you are good. And so the lives that you've created for us are perfect and good in your name. We are right where you want us, right where you need us, right where you would have us. So help us to be content in that and have peace in that. God, be with us now as we worship. We pray that this can just be a chance for us to respond and thank you for all that you've done, Lord. When our eyes are on you, our eyes are off other things and other distractions. And so we want to sing to you and be reminded of your goodness. God, let us respond to you now. It's in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.